I've been asked to explain how I wired up the battery box. Stay tuned and I'll show you how. This basic power station is designed to deliver power through two types of ports, the 30 amp power pole and then a USB charger that has both USB-A and USB-C in it. The switch is designed to turn off and on that USB charger, which has a little bit of parasitic draw, so you don't want it to stay on all the time. So we got one wiring harness for the USB ports with the switch fused, and then one wiring set for the power pole, and of course it's got the 30 amp fuse on it. So that's what goes in the box. This is basically the same setup that you can use on any of the battery boxes. This setup gives you the USB charging capability. This setup gives you power pole. And of course, if you want to do something heavier duty, you can get a larger power pole, bigger fuse, appropriate, larger wires, of course, appropriate, but it's the same basic concept. So, and this was 3D printed. So 3D printed saved me a lot of money. You can buy them online, already built and mounted and all. And they're, I don't know, like $27 or something like that. This cost me virtually nothing to 3D print it. And the model is, I got from Thingiverse. So works out really well. Now it's time to wire up the little USB charger. And to do that, it came with two wires, has a fuse in it. But these wires they're pretty long, right? And of course they have the spade lugs on them so that they connect up. So what we're going to do is we're going to shorten this wire. So we're going to cut just past where the fuse is and put our connectors on for the battery. But one thing that we're going to also do is on this positive lead, what we want to do is we want to put a switch. So we've got this switch, and this switch has 4 wires on it. There's a green wire here that the green wire is the switched wire. So power's going to come in from the positive side. When you depress the switch, then it makes the connection to output power on the other side. Now, this switch also can have a light in it, and so you see a black and a red wire, and that's the 12-volt leads to light up the switch. So what we'll do, we'll take the output side, the red and the green, we're going to tie those together. That way when the switch is depressed, it's going to feed 12-volt positive to the little LED. And we'll run a wire over to the battery with a lug on it to ground it. So the first step is to take our positive lead for the USB charger, and we're going to cut that in order to make a place to insert the switch. In this video, we're going to assemble this using crimp connectors to make it really easy. So what we'll have to do is use the wire strippers to strip back enough of the center conductor to be able to crimp on the connectors. I recommend a good set of crimpers. If you don't have those, spend a few dollars. They're not that expensive, and you'll use these things for a lifetime. So we'll use our butt connector to connect the switch into the wire. Make sure you get all the conductors into the connector so that you make a really good connection. And now we have fused power that goes into the switch. Now the next step is to put the spade lug connector onto the output side of the switch. And remember, put your 12-volt power for the light. Connect those together there. I'm shortening them to make them the same length. And then trim that back and then crimp on your connector to both wires. That will ensure that 12-volt power is fed to the light in the switch when the switch is turned on. We'll crimp that on. Make sure it's good and tight in the connector, that the wires are all the way in. And now we've inserted the switch on the positive power line coming from the battery all the way over to the USB charger. Now the next step to complete this portion is to add the ground wire for the light. So this will complete the circuit on the light. So when the switch is depressed, power is fed back through the light and connected to ground on the battery. Okay, so now we've got the switch inserted into the power line. It's set up so that it'll light the switch. And let's put the connectors on the USB charger. And that completes that portion. That's ready to hook up to the battery and give us supplied power to the USB charger. Again, we put the switch in because there is a parasitic drain when the USB charger is connected to the battery, even though it's doing nothing. The next step is to wire up our Anderseon Power Pole connector. Here are all the parts that we'll use to wire that up. The first step is to cut the wire on the fuse holder. And then we do a second cut on the fuse holder, and this is going to allow us to insert a disconnect, which is critical to getting this wiring through the hole on the case. Without it, there's no way to be able to take the assembled unit and get it mounted in place. So now we'll crimp in our little disconnect connectors. This disconnect can be this round style disconnect, or you could use a spade lug style. Again, it just allows us to take the wire apart so that we can feed it into the hole. Now we'll crimp on one of our ends for the power pole. We'll put one of the ends on the positive side, and then we'll have a second one for the negative terminal. And then to the other end of this wire, we'll crimp on our ring terminal, and that'll be used to attach the positive wire to the positive side of the battery. Then the metal tip for the power pole will slide into the positive side of the power pole connector. It'll click into place, and that completes the positive wire. Now what we need to do is our negative wire. So we'll crimp on a ring connector onto one end and a power pole connector on the other, and then we'll insert it into the black side of the power pole connection. If you like this kind of content, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now the wiring is complete, so that would be ready to hook up to the battery. And there's our quick connect, making it easy for this to get mounted into the box. And then the next step is to add the chassis mount for the connector. So it slides in to this 3D printed piece. It fits in one way, and it's kind of obvious when you put it in there that it connects up tightly if it's put in right. And then there is the little small pin, which these things are a pain. But that goes into the hole and into some holes that are in the connector. And that'll hold it in place so it doesn't slide in and out. When this is put into the box, the top edge of the box will make sure that pin stays in place. All right, so now the power pole connection and its wiring fused with the disconnect is all ready to go. So now it's time to give it a quick test. So we'll connect our multiple negative connections to the battery. And then our two positive lead connections will get connected to the battery. All right, so now it's time to test it. To press the switch, it lights up. The USB charger lights up. Looks like that's working good. And then, of course, I've got my power pole connector there. And certainly I could plug in something to that and check it out. So that's how we do it. So we got one wiring harness for the USB ports with the switch fused, and then one wiring set for the power pole, and of course it's got the 30 amp fuse on it. So that's what goes in the box.